What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And the 2026 NFL Draft is officially in the books. Day 3 finished yesterday. I'm recording this on Sunday to do my official grades for every single draft class, for every single team in the 2026 draft. So if you guys do enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL and draft content. Draft season is officially, well, not officially over since, it's grade season, but pretty soon draft season is going to be officially over, at least for this year. And then we're going into summer scouting and NFL previews. So, yeah, if you guys want to see more of that, enjoy this video, like and subscribe for more of that. And yeah, we're going to get started. So, I'm going to explain a little bit of how this is going on. So, basically, I got to 231 players in this class, and I definitely did not scout every single player drafted, just as most people don't scout every player drafted. So if I don't really have an opinion on a pick, then you'll see the NA in the pick grade. But sometimes, even if I don't scout the player, like Hezekiah Mass is here, but I know enough about the player, like I've seen them play, like while watching someone else, or I've heard enough about them, so I really kind of feel like I know the caliber of player we're talking about. Then I'll give it my best grade, which even though I didn't officially like fully scout the player and they're not officially on my big board. But yeah, we're gonna go through all 32 NFL teams by or just order in which who picked first. So we're starting off with the team that held the #1 overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders, who of course took Fernando Mendoza with the #1 overall pick. So I made a whole video going over all of Fernando Mendoza's profile. I gave him a second round grade. He's 21st on my big board, and I gave the pick a B. The #1 overall pick, of course, he is the best quarterback in the class, so I'm not going to get mad at them for taking the best quarterback in the class at #1. I'm just giving it a B just because I don't know if this pick is exactly a slam dunk, because I don't know if Mendoza is going to be a good NFL quarterback. I think it's more likely than not that Fernando Mendoza is unfortunately going to be a bust, but I still think he has plenty of tools and plenty of ability to actually go out there and be a franchise quarterback. So this is certainly not a bad pick. You're not taking somebody who I think is just not going to be a franchise quarterback for you. I think it's more likely that he doesn't live up to his potential as a #1 overall pick, because he just has so many things to work on, and I think it's going to be his brain and processing is going to have to develop immensely. But I think the Raiders have noticed that and actually have done a good job to go out and get Kirk Cousins, so that Mendoza actually does not have to start week 1 or throughout most of his first season, and ideally he doesn't have to play this season at all as the #1 overall pick. And he can learn behind Kirk Cousins and learn a pro-style NFL offense and learn how to attack NFL coverages. So we'll see how that goes. But Fernando Mendoza as the #1 pick, I give a B. And then in the second round, they trade and get Trayden Stukes, this safety / slot corner out of Arizona. I actually really did like Trayden Stukes. I had him in second round grade, 41st on my big board, so the value is pretty appropriate here. And yeah, I mean, there were plenty of good players on the board, and of course, the weapons on this team weren't looking exactly awesome, but I gave the pick an A- because I do think Trayden Stukes is going to be a really good player. He's got a ton of potential. I think he's still got a little ways to come in his coverage ability, but his ball skills are awesome, and he's a fantastic athlete. And then I was not really a fan of their third round picks. Kieron Crawford, I think, was overdrafted. I don't really see him as a day 2 player. I saw him more of a mid-day 3 guy. I had a late 4th, early 5th on him. He was 152nd on the big board. They took him at 67, so a quite reasonable reach, and I do think there were just better edge players available. Yeah, so Kieron Crawford, not the biggest fan of that pick. I gave that pick a D+. And then Trey Zune, I was just lower on than most people. Trey Zune, of course, has the potential to be really good, so that's why I still gave it a C plus, even though it was still a considerable reach by my big board position. But I think Trey Zoon does have the ability to be really good, and obviously they're moving him to the interior. I just really struggled with Trey Zoon's movement skills, and I think his hand usage is really nice, and he overall has a really, really good anchor in pass protection, which, of course, this all sounds like it would translate to the inside very well. We'll have to see. He didn't play like a ton on the inside. He took a decent amount of center snaps at Texas A&M, but it was not his full-time position. He was mostly a tackle at Texas A&M. So we'll see how that picks goes out. I know I'm lower on Zoon than most people, but I could definitely see him working out as a good interior player. And then in the fourth round, they trade up to guarantee they get the ever-falling Jermod McCoy, a true first-round talent, and he was number 7 on my big board. But I'm going to be honest, there's just, you cannot ask me to give this pick a grade. That is why you see NA next to Jermod McCoy's pick. Trust me, I scouted Jermod McCoy all the way through. I watched all his games that I could from 2024. You can't ask me to give this pick a grade when we all thought Jermod McCoy was going to go first round a little bit ago, and then, oh, all right, we think he's going to fall to the second round, but I don't think anybody expected Jermod McCoy to fall all the way to day 3 of the draft, which at this point, no one outside of the teams really know what's going on with his knee. It has to be worse than we thought. And so I can't really give this pick a grade without knowing how bad his knee injury is. And I'm assuming he's probably just not going to play this year, in which case you're going 2 whole years without playing a single snap of football for Jermod McCoy. And that's going to be really hard, I think, for him to come back from. So we'll see how this pick turns out. If they get Jermod McCoy at his best, this is a top 10 talent in the draft. This is the best corner in the draft that they got all the way at pick 101. But the thing is, it could just as easily not work out at all, and maybe Jermod McCoy is just out of the NFL in a year or two. We'll see. I can't really give this pick a grade, so no grade on the Jermod McCoy pick. I really like them picking up Mike Washington in the 4th. I liked Mike Washington as a late second guy. He was 51 on my big board. Yeah, Mike Washington, I was a fan. I'm betting on the upside with Mike Washington. I know he's not all the way there currently in terms of a runner, but he's a great athlete, and I mean at the running back position, great athletes, if they develop, they turn into really good players, and I think he's a really nice change of pace back for Ashton Jeanty as well, who does not have to carry the full load. And their backup running back before they got Mike Washington was Dylan Laub, so real good pickup here, I think, for the Raiders on day 3 to take a flyer on Mike Washington to be their RB2. Hezekiah Massis and Malik Benson. This seems like appropriate value for them. Malik Benson most likely just going to be a returner. And then the other picks, I don't really have a opinion on Dalton Johnson or Brandon Cleveland. So overall, I think this Raiders draft can either be really, really good or really, really bad. So I'm kind of just going to in between it, but I think this is still a good haul for the Raiders, so I'm going to give them a B. I think Mendoza could be a franchise quarterback. He also could not. I think Trayden Stukes is a good player. I I do think Huron Crawford's just kind of a backup rotational edge. And then Trey Zoon, I think, is a backup interior lineman, but I could see him going out and starting. We'll see. And then Jermod McCoy is the real wild card that can turn this class into an A+ even if Mendoza, Stukes, and the other guys hit. We'll see with Jermod McCoy. And then, Mike Washington, really good RB2. And then some decent role players, depth corner and returner in the back end. So a B grade for the Raiders, a good class. It has the potential to be great, but it also has the potential to be really, really bad. So a B grade. Now moving on. And now we're going to move on to the New York Jets, who I was not a fan of this class on day one. Really not. I mean, you've probably heard it from many people. Taking David Bailey at 2 over so many better options just for me was just not it, man. I view David Bailey as I mean, I still had him as a first round grade, but he was 13 on my big board, and I don't think he's a 3 down player. I think he's just a really, really good DPR that he's kind of a 2.5 down player. You can play him on certain on occasionally on first downs, but you probably don't wouldn't prefer him to be out there because I really just did not like his run defense. But he is a first round caliber pass rusher. But the thing is, there's just Arvell Reese was there at 2, and Arvell Reese, in my opinion, is the second best player in this entire draft class. And he has so much more potential, in my opinion, than David Bailey. Arvell Reese's upside is just so good, and I think his floor is better than David Bailey as well. There's a real big chance that David Bailey comes out here and his first step and get off and spin move are not as effective against NFL tackles, and he doesn't really have a power profile to counter off of it. So there's a chance David Bailey is just is not good. I think Arvell Reese, there's less of it. There's a chance any of these players are just not good, but I think Arvell Reese, there's less of a chance than David Bailey of him not being good. So I think you took the player with the lower floor and lower ceiling at number 2 overall in the draft compared to Arvell Reese. So I'm going to be heavily critical of that. I mean, I would have preferred Ruben Bain as well. I love Ruben Bain. He was my number 1 pure edge in this class. I had Reese as off-ball linebacker. Who will eventually transition to the edge. And then Kenyon Sadiq, I was lower on Sadiq than most people. I had him with a second round grade. He was 29th on my big board, and you take him at 16. I mean, I'm no fan of Mason Taylor, but I would have preferred to get a tight end later and take a better weapon at 16 than Kenyon Sadiq, who I think can be a really good receiving tight end. I think he will be a good receiving tight end in the league. I just think you could have gotten better players here. So I'm going to go C- on Sadiq. It's just a reach for me. And then they trade back up into the first round to make their third first round pick and take Omar Cooper, who I was lower on. You can see my receiver rankings video that I put out. I had him with a second round grade. He was 39th on my big board. You trade up to go and get him. I think there were better receivers here. Well, I think I had Denzel Boston and Jeremy Bernard slightly higher than Omar Cooper, but overall it's a fine pick. Omar Cooper's a good player. I'm a lot more comfortable with Omar Cooper at the back end of the first than I am at 16 and like 13 where people were thinking about taking him. But I'm more comfortable with him at pick 30. Still a slight reach, but he's still a good player, and I think he's going to be a good slot receiver for the New York Jets for sure. So they get a few weapons on day 1, but overall, I just think their first 2 picks were just reaches, and there were just way better players available. So with 3 first round picks on day 1, the assets that I feel like the Jets came out with were just not good enough. And then D'Angelo Pons in the second round is a great pick. I love D'Angelo Pons. He's 33 on my big board. You trade back and take him at 50, which is just awesome. He's going to be a great slot corner for them. Super scrappy. I mean, just he's got a real dog mentality. He's super short, like incredibly small, but he plays so much bigger than his size. He can test throws. His ball skills are awesome, and he unlike most corners, he loves to get in the run game. As a 5'8" corner, I mean, he makes so many plays in the run game and in run defense. It's awesome. Darrell Jackson in the 4th round, I gave a B. Is around fine value. I had a 4th round grade on Darrell Jackson. It's a reach based on the big board, but for the round value, it's fine, so I give that a B. And then Cade Klubnik in the 4th round, A, it's a reach, and B, there were better quarterbacks available. If you wanted a good backup quarterback, why not take Garrett Nussmeier? I don't understand why they wouldn't take him. I don't know. I think Nussmeier's just better than Klubnik in any way, in every way. Klubnik I had as a late 5 guy, so you reach on him by a round with a better quarterback available. So I give that one a C-. And as Cooper, did not watch, no opinion. And then VJ Payne, I think, is a really good steal in the 7th round. He's going to be a real good special teamer for you, and he's got a lot of potential to potentially contribute to your safety room. I had him as a late round 3 guy, late round 3, early round 4. 119 on my big board. You get him at 228. really good value for VJ Payne for a player who has a lot of potential. He just needs to be brought up to speed. So overall, this Jets class, I really did not like day one, but after day one, they actually picked it up a little bit outside of the Cade Klubnik pick. But I think you still get good players. I think David Bailey is going to be a good pass rusher for you. I think Kenyon Sadiq is going to be a good receiving tight end for you. I think Omar Cooper is going to be a good slot receiver for you. I think D'Angelo Pons is going to be a great slot corner for you. Darrell Jackson, a good backup rotational defensive lineman. And then VJ Payne, a nice little flyer in the 7th round. Overall, you get good players, but with 3 first-round picks, one of them being at number 2, and you don't come out with any great players in this class, I'm going to ding you a little bit, but considering you still got good players, I can't say that I dislike this class so much, so I'm going to give it a B. Another just good class. You get good players. It just could have been so much more for the Jets, and we'll see what they do next year with 3 first-round picks. Again. So now the Arizona Cardinals, they ended up taking Jeremiah Love at 3. I'm going to be very critical of this pick. I gave this pick a C-, and this is not because I don't think Jeremiah Love is a good player. You could clearly see I had him as a blue chip player grade. He was number 3 on my entire big board, and they picked him at 3. It's just the process here. They got to explain it to me. You have 3 good running backs on your roster already. You signed one this offseason, and you don't really have a good O-line at all. And you don't have a quarterback. This seems, I don't know, quite similar to the Raiders situation last year that Ashton Jeanty stepped in, and look how that situation turned out. Jeanty, while being a great player and showcasing that he's a good player last year, did not impact the Raiders' offense nearly as much as you thought he would because the offense around him was not good, because they, instead of taking a really high quality player, they took a luxury running back pick at pick 6 instead of a actual player that will help a future running back. Now, I know Jeremiah Love is one of the best players in this class, but he's not going to impact your team as much as you think he is when the team around him is not good. You could have traded back and taken Maui Noah, or I don't know, just taking Maui Noah here. Your right tackle situation is a disaster, and they did address interior line later, but the right tackle situation is still just an absolute mess. So the Jeremiah Love pick I gave a C-. Great player. I just think this pick could have been a lot more impactful for the future of this team and the foundation of the team, I should say, than taking a really good running back who might not be able to live up to his hype in year 1 because the offensive line in front of him is not nearly as good. Chase Bisontis, great pick. I love Chase Bisontis. He was 23 on my big board, 2nd round grade. He took him at 34. Awesome pick for the Cardinals, helping that interior line and Jeremiah Love. Even though I don't think Chase Bisontis is not a really great run blocker. He is a really good pass blocker, though, so there's that. And then, is this... I'm not going to say this is the worst pick of the draft because we'll get to that later, but Carson Beck with the first pick in the 3rd round, basically taking him with a 2nd round pick. Carson Beck, a player that I had graded as a late 4, early 5 quarterback who's basically just a good backup. You take him in a spot where he has the draft pedigree to be competing for your starting job. I don't see it at all, and I think this is, if not the worst pick, one of the 3 worst picks in this entire draft class. Carson Beck, you reached on him by almost 100 picks by my board. What does he offer you? For me, when I watch Carson Beck, his skill set offers me a good backup, like Cade Klubnik. But they took him with a high 3rd round pick to compete for actual playing time. Carson Beck's arm is not the same as it was before the surgery. His decision making is erratic, and he's incredibly inconsistent. I cannot get behind this pick at all, and I'm assuming you've seen everybody else say the same thing. So a true F pick right there for Carson Beck in the top of the third round. Caleb Proctor, I unfortunately did not have film on, but he's a good player. I know enough about him to give a B grade on this. Reggie Virgil, I actually liked quite a bit. They get him in the 5th round. I had him as a late 3. 109 on my big board. They get him at 143. Good pick there. And then I don't really have an opinion on the other ones. So this class, you got a few good players, but I this this class could have been so much better for helping build the foundation of this team that will be next year most likely drafting a quarterback, and I feel like you could have been helping build the foundation of this team a lot better for that future quarterback instead of taking a running back and then a backup quarterback with a premium pick on day 2. I'm giving this draft a C plus. I think you got contributors. I think you got a really good running back. But I don't like the process of which the Cardinals went about this draft at all. C plus for the Cardinals. And now the Tennessee Titans, my AFC South division rival as a Colts fan. I was a fan of this draft on day 1 and 2. Absolutely was a massive fan. Carnell Tate at 4 is exactly the pick I would have made, and I have been pounding the table for this pick for a while now. I think the best thing you could do for a young quarterback is get him help at receiver, and I'm sorry that receiving core was not looking good enough. Oh, sure, they signed Wan'Dale Robinson. Nice. They have a average slot receiver now. Calvin Ridley being your number 1 just can't happen. I think Carnell Tate steps into that room. It is the number 1. Even if a lot of people say Carnell Tate is 2, I think he has all the tools and ability to be a dominant number 1 receiver in the NFL. He just still has to grow in the route running area. But I mean, he was number 6 on my big board. They took him at 4. Not really a big reach, and I'm always a fan of giving your young quarterback weapons to work with. So now the Titans receiving core goes from a very below average receiving core to actually quite a good one. You have Carnell Tate as your 1, Calvin Ridley as your 2, and then Wan'Dale Robinson as your good 3 slot receiver, with Io Manor and DK rotating in as 2 really good players. I mean, I'm really a fan of this pick, and I really like how this pick sets up Cam Ward for the future. And then they trade back up into the first round to take Keldrick Falk. I was actually a big fan of Keldrick Falk. The amount of hate Keldrick Falk has gotten, I think, is a little ridiculous. I had him as a late 1, early 2, 17th on my big board. They trade up to get him at 31. I as well give this pick an A, just like the Carnell Tate pick. There is no player in this class that I want to be good more than Keldrick Falk. The amount of trash talk that he has received from fans and analysts has been unbelievable. And yes, I don't think he is the best edge player in the world, and he has a long way to go in pass rush. But you could see at Auburn, you could see the flashes of brilliance in pass rush that he had. And as well, he's the best run defending edge rusher in the class easily, even over Zion Young, TJ Parker, and all those heavy-handed guys. Keldrick Falk is a monster in run defense with tons of potential in pass rush, and I really like the Tennessee Titans going up and getting him at the back end of the first. And then they get Anthony Hill at the back end of the second, right where I would have valued him. I used 52 on my big board. They get him at 60, another A pick, great value, going to be a good player for them. And then day 3, they took a few guys that I didn't really watch, but they get Nick Singleton as a nice RB3 with potential to be maybe your RB2 depending on how his vision develops. He was 114 on my big board. They get him at 165 in the 5th round. He might not play a whole lot. He may just be a special teams guy. We'll see. But Singleton, a lot of potential, but that vision is really rough. But Pat Coogan in the 6th round, I had him as a round 4 player. Really good O-line depth for a team that certainly could use upgrades on the O-line. Overall, I really like this class. Day 3 wasn't as awesome as the first 2 days, but day 3 is day 3, so you can't really knock them too much for that. But the first 2 days really carry this class, in my opinion. They got 3 really impactful players, and then some nice depth pieces on day 3. I give this class an A-. real good class for the Titans, in my opinion. And then the New York Giants, who had one hell of a first day of the draft, getting Arvell Reese at pick 5. He fell down the board, and in the interview, the Giants said that Arvell Reese was the number one player on their board, so they just took the best player in the draft at pick 5. And yes, of course, Arvell Reese is kind of redundant with how many edge rushers they have, but it looks like they're looking to ship off Kayvon Thibodeaux possibly. Well, maybe not, because the talks were with the Saints, and the Saints just traded for Tyree Wilson. But I don't know how much Tyree Wilson does for you. We'll see. But Arvell Reese, there's a chance he could just play off ball his first year, or you just have the most insane edge rotation of all time. Who knows? But great pick, Arvell Reese, my second best player in the class, blue chip player. Insane upside with a really, really solid floor as well. Great pick for the Giants, even if it is not a position of need. I mean, why not, you know? And then Maui Noah at pick 10. He was number 5 on my big board. They get him at 10. Great pick. Help. I'm always down for trench help, and Maui Noah is the best trench player in this class, in my opinion, slightly over Venga Ioane, so I do like the pick of Maui Noah over Ioane here at pick 10. I give that pick an A as well. And then in the second round, they get Colton Hood at 37, slight reach in terms of big board and draft position, but overall he's going to be a good player, and you needed to help that corner room out. And then Malachi Fields, they take him at the top of the third. Good player. I think it is a slight reach, and I do think that there were better receiver prospects available, so that's why it's a B minus and not a B. But overall, Malachi Fields, I think, is going to be a good contribution to the receiving core. I see him as more of a wide receiver 3 to 4 in the NFL, just because I just couldn't get over his lack of separation. But he's got amazing ball skills and amazing size, so he's going to be a nice change of pace receiver for Jackson Dart to go to. And then day 3, they had 3 6th-round picks. J.C. Davis, I like as good O-line depth. And then Jack Kelly, I had a UDFA grade on. They take him in the 6th round. He's just kind of probably most likely just going to be a special teams guy, so nothing crazy. It's just there were a few other guys I probably would have gone with over Jack Kelly, so C plus on that. But overall, I mean, this Giants draft in day 1 and 2, they got really good players at great spots. I think they get 2 possible game changers for this team in the first round at pick 5 and 10, and then some really nice players in the second and third rounds. I give this draft an A. Just a pure A draft. I think you got some really high upside with this class, and I think it has a pretty good floor as well. So now the Kansas City Chiefs class, in the first round, they traded up to pick number 6 to take Mansour Delane. Overall, Mansour Delane, I was lower on, unfortunately, than most people. I had him as a late 1, early 2. 16th on my big board, though. So overall, I just think I don't dislike the pick or the player or the fit. I just think it was a reach, and you trade up to get him. So by my board, this is a reach for Mansour Delane. I was lower on him. I still think he's going to be a good corner, but trading up to go get him, I just didn't like as much, especially in the top 6 of the draft when I had him at 16 on my big board. But he's going to be a fine player, so I can't knock this pick too much. So I give it a C plus, just because you know, I I think there could have been a better process there. And then Peter Woods at 29, 19th on my big board, late 1, early 2. They take him in a great, perfect range. I give that pick an A. He has a lot of upside, Peter Woods, but had a really bad 2025 after coming off a really, really good 2024. There's a lot of upside, and he gets to work with Chris Jones now, who can mentor him and maybe get him back to that 2024 dominant form. So we'll see. But I really like the Peter Woods pick. I really like the fit. You're really helping out that defensive line. Speaking of defensive line help, R. Mason Thomas in the second round. R. Mason Thomas, I think, you picked him a whole round early. I think it's a reach by a good amount on my board. I had him at 74. They get him at pick 40. And the real stinger was Cassius Howells on the board, who I think is just better than R. Mason Thomas, really. So yeah, I not the biggest fan of this pick with who else was on the board and the position. So C minus for the R. Mason Thomas pick. I think he's a fine designated pass rusher rotational player, but I think he's pretty overdrafted here, and I think there you could have gotten better players with in that exact role. And then day three, round four, they picked Jaden Kennedy. I know there's a lot of big Jaden Kennedy fans out there. I am not one of them. I did not like his man coverage at all. He's a slot corner from Oregon. I had him with a sixth round grade as just kind of a special teams guy. 186 on my big board. They pick him at a 109 in the fourth round. So if this went on day two, for me, this would have been an F. But because it's day three, I'm a little more lenient. I give it a D just because I think it is still a massive reach. But overall, just not a big fan of the pick. But yeah, and then they come back and they get Emmett Johnson in the fifth, who I think is going to be a really nice change of pace backup running back for them. Had him with a third round grade, 76 on my big board. They get him at 161. And then they followed up by getting Cyrus Allen, a really underrated player in this class, in the fifth round. He's a very Chiefs esque wide receiver, small, speedy, shifty guy. I had him as a late round three guy, and they get him all the way in the fifth round. 112 him at big board, they get him at 176. A minus pick there for the Chiefs. Really love that one. And then Garrett Nussmeier somehow falls all the way to the seventh round, pick 249 near the end of the seventh round. And I give this pick an A because you're not really going to have Mahomes, and you go out and get the best backup quarterback in this class, in my opinion, outside of Mendoza and Simpson. Garrett Nussmeier as the backup quarterback archetype, I think is the best one you could have gotten. I had him as a late three, early four. They get him all the way in the seventh round, so you barely are spending any capital on a guy who can come in and win you some games, I think, as a spot starting quarterback for Mahomes. And yeah, I really love the Garrett Nussmeier pick. He absolutely should have gone way, way earlier over so many of the other quarterbacks that got drafted. I don't know really what happened. I don't know if it was the injury that kind of scared teams away, but I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to come in and be able to win this Chiefs team a few games. I don't think he's going to be a good starter or anything like that. He certainly does not have the tools or the consistency for that, but I do think he can come in and win you games and just be a good game managing backup quarterback. So the Chiefs draft, I think you got some really good players. I think you just reached on some of these guys, but I think day three was a really nice day for them. So a B plus for this Chiefs class. I think you got some good players. I think it could have been a little better, and I think the position you got these players could have been a little better. But overall, I think you got some really good contributors to this team. So a B plus class for the Kansas City Chiefs. Washington Commanders now. At pick seven, they take Sonny Styles, my number one player in the entire draft class. Blue chip grade. You need linebacker. You get him at seven, which I was all, even though Sonny Styles is the number one player in my class, I was kind of always against the Cardinals taking him at three just because the positional value of linebacker. There's no way I can take a linebacker at number three overall, knowing it is, in my opinion, the least valuable position in the NFL. But Sonny Styles is an awesome player, and I think he's going to impact this defense a lot. Um, Being able to be Dan Quinn's green dot in the middle of the defense, do it all kind of guy. I mean, Sonny Styles, awesome, awesome linebacker prospect. S- Superhuman athlete, superhuman, and just lit up the combine. And as well, his play on the field as well. He's physical. He gets in there. He's an awesome tackler. He's a fantastic mover. He's going to be a great player for a long time. And the Commanders get him all the way down at pick seven, number one player on the board, and we'll see. And then third round, they go Antonio Williams. He was 95 on my big board, and I think there were better players. And I think he's a little redundant with Jalen Lane, but if they don't really care for Jalen Lane, I think Antonio Williams could be a possible upgrade on him. So I had him as late three, early four. They just take him about 20 spots too early for me, so I give it a C, especially because I think there were better receivers available. And then they get Joshua Josephs all the way in the fifth round, a guy who I think is a really good designated pass rusher option. I think he's better than a lot of players that went ahead of him. He was 77 on my big board. They get him at pick 147 in the fifth round. A grade on the Joshua Josephs pick for me as well. And then Katron Allen in the 6th round, uh, good player. Him and Nick Singleton had nearly identical grades for me. I think Katron Allen is the one with a higher floor. Singleton certainly the one with more upside, but I think Katron Allen gives you the higher floor there. He'd be a nice backup RB2, possibly RB3. 99 on my big board, they get him at 187. Good pick there for the Commanders in the 6th round. And then Athan Kaliakmanis, or Athan, however you say his first name, good backup quarterback in the 7th round. Uh, Overall, he doesn't really have any elite traits. He's kind of just like a good backup archetype, like a Davis Mills with even less of an arm, and even less mobility even. But yeah, as a 7th round pick, that's completely fine. So overall, this Commanders class, I think you got a few really good contributors to this team, especially with your first pick. I think you get a future All Pro linebacker, which of course is going to be awesome. Antonio Williams will probably be a good contributor to the receiving core. I just think the position and the talent that was available could have been a little better with that 3rd round pick, but I think day 3 was really good for this team. You get a good designated pass rusher, a good backup running back, and a good solid QB3 option. So I'm giving this Commanders class a B plus. Got some really good players. I think you got a superstar on your hands as well. So potential to be a really good class. But yeah, now the New Orleans Saints at pick 8. They go with Jordan Tyson, the receiver out of Arizona. Big injury concerns, but he was the best route runner in the class, in my opinion. Again, go watch my receiver video for my full thoughts on all these receivers. Used 11 on my big board to take him at 8, so a slight 3 spot reach, but like that's not really much. And as well, I had Makai Lemon graded higher, but overall, A minus just because, again, I had Makai Lemon graded higher, and it's a top 10 pick on an injured player. We'll see, but if this guy stays healthy, he's a really nice compliment to Chris Olave. And then in the 2nd round, they go out and get Christian Miller, interior D lineman, big, heavy handed run stuffer from Georgia. Round 2 grade, 34 on my big board. They get him at 42. Great pick. You needed help on your defensive line, and Christian Miller gives you that. And you can also, it helps you stop the run a little bit. Oscar Delp, they get him at 73 out of 3rd round grade. He was 89 on my big board. B plus. Really good tight end prospect. The production hasn't been there so far, but the potential with this guy is just amazing. I'm so surprised Georgia didn't really use him more. And he flashed so much as a blocker and receiver, and he's just a stellar athlete. Delp has certainly a ton of potential to be a really good tight end for this Saints team and could possibly develop into their best tight end here in year 1 or 2. Jeremiah Wright did not scout, but I do know enough about him to give him a grade. Good backup interior lineman in the 4th round on day 3, which is nice. And then Bryce Lance goes around the area I thought he should have gone. Everybody was talking about this guy as a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and if you watch Bryce Lance, he was. If we pull up my rankings here, um, he was all the way down here, my 27th ranked wide receiver, and as well the graded out as the 2nd worst route runner in the entire draft class, only behind Jeff Caldwell, who went undrafted. Um, yeah, outside of just running straight, Bryce Lance really struggles to turn and run any route that isn't a go or a post. Um, but he'll be a nice guy that you can just throw up a few deep shots to every year and have some big explosive plays. But he's really not going to be a good player. I just think he's kind of a wide receiver 5 deep shot specialist kind of player. And that's honestly fine to take in the 4th round. So I give the pick a B. And then Lorenzo Styles, they get in the 5th round. Just kind of a good special teams player. 198 in my big board. They take him at 172. A slight reach, but he's going to be a good special teams guy. I don't think they really think he's going to ever play on their defense. So B pick there. Barron Brown, a returner in the 6th round as well. B. And TJ Hall, no opinion on. So overall, this is a really good haul. This is a ton of potential for this class to be really good, but also some potential for this class to be not so good. Jordan Tyson, with the injuries stay with him, and maybe he just doesn't live up to the hype. That pick maybe flops. Oscar Delp still has to come a little bit of ways as a player, but the upside is there. But overall, I mean, I think you got three good players at the top, and I think you got some really nice depth and rotational pieces on day three. I'm giving this Saints draft an A minus. I really like this draft. Tyler Shuck is going to be pretty happy with how this draft worked out for him, and I think this Saints team has some real ability to contend for the NFC South this year. The Cleveland Browns, what a haul for Cleveland. In the first round, they trade down from 6 to 9 and take Spencer Fano, my second highest graded tackle, but I still think Fano was a good player. 14 on my big board. They take him at 9. Completely fine with the pick. You needed O line help. Fano helps you with that. I think obviously I would have preferred like a Maui Noah or someone over Fano to play tackle, but it's fine. I give it the pick a B plus because he's still a good player, and I think he's going to be a good player for you. And then Casey Concepcion, I love this pick. You get him at 24. He was my 15th ranked player in the draft. Pure round one grade on Concepcion. I love his separation ability and his dynamic nature as a receiver. Really fun player. A grade there. And then in round two, you go with another receiver who I think this is the perfect range for Denzel Boston. I mean, pretty much. I mean, they took him at 39, and my big board position on him was 38. So they take him a pick after my big board position. Just great pick here. And now this receiving core is completely revamped with two really good receiver prospects, in my opinion. Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. So now not only does this receiving core have actual good players, they have different skill sets uh, as well that complement each other, which is really nice, really good, I think, um, process here by the Cleveland Browns. And now your offense is looking really nice. And then they go to the defensive side of the ball and get an absolute steal and Emmanuel McNeil Warren all the way at pick 58. I mean, he was a top 20 player in this class for me. I liked him over Dylan Thieneman. I had him as a late first round grade, early second round grade. I mean, it's inexplicable that McNeil Warren fell this far. You get a really good starting safety at pick 58 in the second round. A plus pick there for the Emmanuel McNeil Warren pick. And then in the third round, I think you do reach a little bit on Austin Barber, but I actually do like Austin Barber as kind of a backup swing tackle. I don't know if I like picking him at pick 86 in the third round, but overall, it's not that bad of a pick because I do actually like Austin Barber. So it's a B minus just because a little bit of a reach. I think I like Austin Barber more as a early day three player instead of a late day two player, but still. And then Parker Brailsford, just O line depth, which honestly pretty good. And then they get Justin Jefferson, a player who I actually really liked out of Alabama, a really fun splash play linebacker, really fluid and athletic. 92 on my big board. They get him at 149 in the fifth round. If even if he doesn't contribute to the actual defense a whole lot, he's going to be a really nice special teamer for you. Um, Super athletic, so I give that pick an A. Joe Royer, I just I think they drafted him just kind of 20 spots too early on my big board. I give the pick a C, and I think there were a lot better tight end prospects available. That's the bigger reason why I didn't like that pick as much. And then Taylor Green in the sixth round is fine. I don't know if he's going to stay at quarterback for them or not, but I'm fine with taking a sixth round pick on Taylor Green. It's just kind of a flyer just because he's so athletic. And then Carson Ryan, no opinion. But overall, this is the best class so far, in my opinion. I give this draft an A for the Cleveland Browns. Starters all over the board, really high end contributors, and you get some really good depth and special team pieces as well down the board. This draft just has it all, and this team's now shaping up to look pretty nice for whoever your quarterback's going to be in the future. We'll see how that works out. So the Dallas Cowboys now. This seems to be a class a lot of people like. I am on the opposite end of the spectrum with this class. Caleb Downs, great pick in the first round. Number 9 on my big board, they get him at 11. Completely fine with that pick. A minus there for me for Caleb Downs. I was not a fan of Malachi Lawrence. I did not see the first round hype at all with him. I went and watched him initially, had him as a late 3, early 4. He kept getting hype. I watched him again. I came out with the same conclusion. I just think he's a backup rotational designated pass rusher. I did not see like the insane pass rush juice that everybody saw with Malachi Lawrence. I I mean, I thought he was a late day two player. He's 115 on my big board, and they take him at 23. I, I'm not a big fan of this pick at all. And as even though consensus is going to be closer to having this pick as a like a fine, like a B minus pick, for me, these grades are based off my rankings and how I think these players are going to perform in the league. Malachi Lawrence pick, I give an F. Just immense reach based on my board and view of Malachi Lawrence. Taking this player in the first round is just not it for me. And then Jayshon Borum, they take in the third round, C minus. I was also not a Jayshon Borum guy. I know a lot of people like Jayshon Borum, even over Derek Moore, which I thought was insane. When I watched Borum, I did not see what other people saw. I had him as a fifth round player, a mid day three guy. He's 172 on my big board. They take him at 92. Just another insane reach, but I mean, you got two rotational pass rushers, I guess. Pick I give a C minus, and then they pick Drew Shelton in the fourth round, who I thought the tape on Drew Shelton was just pretty awful. I'm not gonna lie, um, he just did not look really good. I've heard that they might just move him to inside, which I guess he might be better there, but yeah, really not a big fan of Drew Shelton. I had a seventh round grade. You take him at the top of day two. Not the biggest fan. D minus pick there. And then Devin Moore finally get back on track here, picking Devin Moore in the fourth round. He's 113 on my big board, and then I pick him at 114, which is really nice. Uh, B plus pick for the Cowboys there. Devin Moore, really good backup corner with a lot of potential. Could possibly be a starter for you someday. And then LT Overton, another player that I personally just do not like at all. I would not have drafted LT Overton, let alone in the fourth round. Used 225 on my big board. It goes at 137. LT Overton, not a fan of this player really at all. I give this pick an F. I really don't think LT Overton is going to contribute to this team at all. I did not see much of an NFL player with LT Overton. And then Anthony Smith, no opinion. So again, this is a class a lot of people like. I'm just lower on some of these players that they ended up taking super high. But I do think you get a really good player in Caleb Downs, and I think you get some decent rotational depth pieces in this draft. But man, it could have been a lot better in my opinion. So I give this Cowboys draft a C minus. The Miami Dolphins now, speaking of disappointing draft classes, you have one of the worst rosters I have ever seen in my life. And in my you have a boatload of picks in this draft, and in my opinion, this draft ended up as a complete and utter disaster for the Miami Dolphins. First off, you trade back one spot with the Cowboys, fine, and then you take Caden Proctor. I'm just not a fan of Caden Proctor, man. He's 28th on my big board. I had him as an interior O line. They draft him to play most likely right tackle. I do not think this guy can survive as a tackle in the NFL. At least from what I saw on the Bama team, absolutely not. Now, apparently, he's dropped weight. We'll see how he's able to move, but just going off the Bama tape, I don't think this guy can play tackle in the NFL. Now, he would be a massive guard, but I really like the idea of King Proctor at guard, just not all the way at 12. And they're going to play him at tackle anyways, so it doesn't matter. I give this pick a C minus. You could have had Ruben Bain here. That's all I'm going to say. You could have had Ruben Bain. You could have had a premier pass rusher opposite of Chop Robinson on your defensive line with Jeff Halfley. But they take Caden Proctor, and not only do they take Caden Proctor, they take him over, in my opinion, better tackle prospects and Vega Ioane. I'm not a fan of the Proctor pick at all. C minus. I think he'll be a fine player. Just I don't think he will at tackle. But we'll see. But Chris Johnson as well. You trade up three spots to reach on Chris Johnson, when I think there are better corners available. Not the biggest fan of that process. I think Chris Johnson's a good player. Uh, I have 40 on my big board though, and you trade up to take him at 27 over a few corners I liked better. Not the biggest fan of that. C for Chris Johnson. Jacob Rodriguez, I am a lot lower on the consensus at him at 63. They take him at 43. I initially liked this pick a lot less. I gave it, I think, a C initially. But looking at the roster, This linebacking core is not as bad as the rest of the team. You have Jordan Brooks, which does not force Jacob Rodriguez to be your number one green dot linebacker who has to do it all. He can kind of go into his better role, which I think is his best role, which is just a good number two linebacker who can kind of just make plays. There's real concerns for me with his length and ability to attack blocks and his coverage skills. But he's a good athlete and a very inconsistent tackler, but he does force turnovers. I just don't think he's a number one linebacker. So I think you do reach here, but I do think you get a good player. And then speaking of reaches, I mean, Caleb Douglas in the third round, absolutely not a fan whatsoever. I had a sixth round grade on Caleb Douglas, 195 on my big board, and you take him at 75 in the third round. Instant F pick for me. I mean, this is a player that is a wide receiver seven, maybe just kind of fills out your roster and is a special team player, and you take him with a premium pick in the third round. Not a fan at all. And then we'll get to more of these tight ends that were taken super early later, but Wills Kazmarek, pure blocking tight end taken in the third round. I do believe, from what I adjacently saw on the Ohio State offense with Kazmarek, he's one of the better blocking tight ends in this class, but I still don't think he was worth the 87th pick in the draft over players that were available. And then we finally get a pick that I love, Chris Bell at the back end of the third round. Awesome value here. I had him as a late second, early third. Coming off the injury, 55 on the big board. They get him at 94. A pick. You needed receiver. I think you get a good one coming off injury who has a lot of upside, but the floor is a little lower with Chris Bell, so we'll see how it goes. But I think you get good value on a player like that here at 94. And then day three, a lot of picks. Day three actually picked up quite well for this Dolphins team. I like the Trey Moore pick in the fourth round. Real good, high upside, athletic linebacker prospect. Kyle Lewis, I mean, you get an absolute steal on this guy. I had him as a late third, early fourth. You pick him at 138. He was 100 on my big board. Real good player. I'm lower on him than most. I just think as a linebacker, quote unquote prospect, I just did not like his ability to attack blocks or anything. But that's of course not really his role. He's more of a coverage player, but he still plays near the box. And so since he's going to be near the box, he's going to have to get in and run defense. And I just really wish he attacked blockers better. But oh well. Michael Taff in the fifth round is fine value. Good backup, safety, special teamer. And then Kevin Coleman, awesome pick in the fifth round. I had him as a third round player. This is a player who can really contribute to your uh, receiving core, which is a disaster at the current moment. But you get Chris Bell and Kevin Coleman, players that I do think are going to get significant steps for this team. Play well. I like Kevin Coleman's route running ability. I mean, he's just overall a very solid receiver prospect who I think should have gone in the third round. And then the only other pick I have a opinion on is DJ Campbell. They pick in the sixth round. I had him as a priority UDFA. They reach on by 16 spots in the big board. It's a fine pick. I would have preferred to get him a little later though. Uh, so DJ Campbell gets a B minus. But overall, outside of day three, where you get the real impactful players on day one and two, I think this Dolphins team completely dropped the ball. This could have been a franchise altering draft where you get tons of playmakers and really good players on day one and two for this team. And I think they got a project lineman, a solid, okay outside corner who they could have gotten better picks at, a good number two linebacker, a receiver who is going to be vying for the to even be on the roster, and then a tight end three blocking tight end. And then you finally get a possible wide receiver two with upside. Not the haul you really expected out of this Dolphins team, and I think this could have been a lot better. You could have had Ruben Bain, Avion Terrell, D'Angelo Pons. I mean, you could have had so much more than what you got, and so I'm giving this Miami Dolphins draft a D plus, even though I really like day three and the Chris Bell pick. Those top 50, those top 75 picks were just complete disasters in my opinion and a complete misuse of resources from this Dolphins front office. Now the Los Angeles Rams with certainly one of the most controversial picks of the first round where they take Ty Simpson at pick 13. So for me, I'm going to bring up my scouting my rankings here. Ty Simpson and Mendoza for me are QB1 and 2. They both have second round grades. I do think Mendoza is the better of the two. But I think Ty Simpson has a lot to like as well. I think Ty Simpson does a lot of things better than Mendoza. I, of course, think Mendoza does some things better than Ty Simpson. Mostly, big size, big arm, all that. But Ty Simpson is a good player. He's 35 of my big board. So for the viewer, if you see me give it a B to Mendoza at pick 1, and then at pick 13, Ty Simpson, who I have the same round grade on, I give a B minus. It's kind of a little hypocritical, but I'll explain. This is a team that could have won the Super Bowl this year, and you had a premium draft pick to go get you a player to help you win a Super Bowl. Now, I get playing for the future, but when you're this close to a Super Bowl, you just got to go all out, in my opinion, and to win a Super Bowl because those 5, 6 years of, well, our team doesn't really have a future is worth it for that one Super Bowl win, in my opinion. And they take Ty Simpson, who I like as a player. I just I don't like the process here. I think they should have gone all in for a Super Bowl. That's why this pick is a B minus. But I still don't hate this pick. I like Ty Simpson, and I think this is the perfect spot for him to go. So if this team wasn't as close to a Super Bowl as it was, I probably would have given this pick like a B plus or an A minus. Um, but just because of the situation the Rams are in, I think they should have gone a different route. So I give that pick a B minus. I think they reach on Max Clare in the second round. I think they reach on Keegan Trost in the third round. I had both those guys around a round later that they picked him. 98 my big board for Max Clare. They get him at 61. Then Trost I had at 158. They get him at 93. Just C grades for both those guys. And then day three, they got CJ Daniels, who's going to be a good wide receiver, 4 or 5. And then Tim Keenan, who I actually think can contribute to this defensive line as a good nose tackle. Unfortunately, I mean, those players are just kind of rotational backups. I think the real impactful picks for this Rams team were kind of misused. So I'm gonna go with D plus on this Rams draft. I think they just misuse of their top picks, and I think you could have really propelled yourself to go for a Super Bowl win here, and I think you just kind of dropped the ball. Now the Baltimore Ravens, starting off with one of my favorite picks of the third round, favorite picks of the first round, Vega Ioane at 14, number 8 on my big board. Great, fills a big need. Protect Lamar, get the second best lineman in the class, in my opinion, A plus pick there. And then they get Zion Young. I think a really good position in the second round. 45. He's 36 on my big board. A pick there. They need help uh, on the edge for sure. He gives you some really, really nice floor as a run defender, and then he also has some nice pass rush upside as well. And then we've got a real big reach here on Jacoby Lane, a receiver who I think is a wide receiver 5 or 6. Uh, 178 on my big board. Take him at 80. I have to give this an F. This is just such a big reach on Jacoby Lane. Just I really cannot get behind Jacoby Lane on day 2 at all. Just complete non-factor as a separator. And I mean, he plays the ball well. He has good hands, but if you can't really get open, you're unathletic and big, and you don't really play bigger than your frame, it's really tough for me to want you in the third round. And then they get Elijah Surratt with good value. A lot of people say he's a steal. I really don't think so. Elijah Surratt was 141 on my big board. They take him at 115. Fine round value, though, so I give it a B. I think Surratt's a good wide receiver 4. And Matthew Hibner, a real big sleeper. They take him in the fourth round, right where I would have taken him. 133 is where they picked him. 132 on my big board. I think there were still better tight ends. That's why I only gave it a B plus. But I think Hibner is a really good player, and I think he's going to be a really nice Isaiah Likely replacement. And Chandler Rivers, I think you get really good value on in the fifth round. I think he was a third round caliber corner. 80 on my big board, the end at 162. A pick there for the Ravens. Cuevas is around fine value for him, so I give that pick a B. Adam Randall, didn't really scout, watched him adjacently at the Senior Bowl in Clemson. I think he's just a running back 3 or 4. They take him in the fifth round over some better running back prospects. Punter, no real opinion there. Rayshon Benny in the seventh round, awesome pick. I think Rayshon Benny could have gone back into day 2. I think he's going to be a real nice rotational player on the defensive line, and you get him all the way in the seventh round. A plus pick for the Ravens there. So overall, really good draft. 1 or 2 picks that I really question. Actually, really just one pick that I really question, which is Jacoby Lane. But I think you still got some really good players here. B plus draft for the Ravens. Real nice draft haul there for Baltimore. Uh, And now Tampa Bay. I mean, Trevor Sigma is got to be real happy with this class, and I know he was because I was watching him. Uh, but Ruben Bain at 15, my number 4 player on my big board. Awesome, awesome player. He, I have no idea why he falls all the way down to 15. Easy A plus pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at a massive position of need. You get the best pure edge rusher in this class day one, in my opinion. Amazing. And then Josiah Trotter in the second round. I'm fine with taking him at 46, 53 on my big board. Slight reach. I think there were better linebackers. That's why it's only a B pick. Fine pick. He'll be a good player for you them. And then Ted Hurst, I think they get really good value on. 46 on my big board. They get him all the way at 84. Real good player. I think he's going to contribute to this receiving core. He's a nice change of pace from their other receivers as well, especially after Mike Evans left. And then Keontae Scott, another guy who I think could have gone late second. 56 on the big board. They get him at 116. Another A pick. And then guess what? You want another A pick. Devontae Capehart. I really liked Capehart. I had him as a third round player, 82nd on my big board. They get him at 155. Awesome player, awesome value on all three of those picks, Hurst, Scott, and Capehart. And then how about some more value? Billy Schrouth, a guy who I think is a really, really nice backup interior lineman in the fifth round, 110 on the big board. You get him at 160. A minus grade on the Schrouth pick. No opinion on Sharp. I mean, outrageous value on some of these picks. I think all these guys are going to be contributors to your team. Easy A grade on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft. And now the Detroit Lions. So in the first round they go Blake Miller. I mean this is a player that I just completely fits the Lions mentality. Real good player. It looks like they're just going to switch Panay Sewell over left tackle, which is what he played in college. And then Blake Miller will fill in that right tackle spot and will be a really good player. He was my best tackle available on the board. 22nd on my big board, 17th pick in the draft. A minus just because, slight little reach there on Blake Miller. I think the value is a little much, but still, again, best tackle available. A minus pick for the Lions. I think you got a another bookend tackle for this team. And then they trade up in the second round to take Derek Moore. I had Derek Moore as more of a late second. They take him more mid to early second, which is fine. 59 on my big board. They get him at 44. Still a really good pick. Derek Moore was one of the best edge rushers available at the time. Really good player. You get to keep him in Michigan as well, which is real fun. B plus pick there. And then Jimmy Rolder, another guy I didn't scout, but in the fourth round seems like good value for him there. And then Keith Abney, amazing value in the fifth round. With the amount of injuries this team has as at corner, Abney doesn't even have to start, and he's going to come in and contribute to this team a lot. Fifth round player, they get him at 157. He was 54th on my big board. They get him 100 spots and change after. I had him as a late second guy, and they get him in the fifth round. Awesome pick. Kendrick Law, gadget return guy in the fifth round, around right where I thought he should go. No opinion on the other picks. Overall, you get a franchise tackle hopeful at 17. You get a really good edge rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Linebacker depth, corner, real good corner depth with the possibility of a future starter, and a nice gadget receiver. I really like this Lions draft. You may have not gotten any great players, but you got a lot of good players at good spots. So I give this draft a B plus for the Lions. And then the Vikings. This is where I'm going to differ from a lot of people. A lot of people don't like this class. I do, and it all hinges on Caleb Banks pretty much. This Caleb Banks pick, pretty much the entire draft hinges on it. If this guy cannot stay healthy, this draft will be a lot worse. But when healthy, Caleb Banks is a first round caliber defensive tackle. He's 12 on my big board, not factoring injuries, and they get him at 18. So it's good value at a big position of need. And this guy has the chance to be a monster in the NFL. He just has to stay healthy. Jake Golday at 51. His fine value is 45 on my big board. B plus there for Jake Golday. Second round grade. Good player. He's going to be real nice for Brian Flores. And speaking of more Brian Flores picks, how about Dominic Orange as well in the third round? I had him as a late second guy, 66 on my big board, 82. Really good nose tackle, and now that interior defensive line, you have Dominic Orange, Caleb Banks, and Chris Redman really, really looking. I mean, that defensive line before this draft was looking like a disaster, and now that defensive line is looking really, really solid. Real nice job from the Vikings there. And then Caleb Tiernan, a nice backup swing tackle. Nothing more than that. Fine value for him. Jacoby Thomas, real boomer bust guy, but has a lot of potential, but also could just be a depth player. But third round, around right where the value I would have taken him. Charles Demings is good value in the fifth round, a good backup corner. And then Demind Claiborne, fine value in the sixth round. I had him at 210. They took him at 198, so a slight reach, but this late, it's fine. He's more of a boomer bust player just because his vision is so bad, but he's a really good athlete. Uh, but overall, I really do like this Vikings class. I think they completely revamped the defensive line and got some defensive playmakers for them. Um, I really like it. A minus for the Minnesota Vikings. Now the Carolina Panthers at pick 19. They take Monroe Freeling. I'm not the biggest fan of Monroe Freeling, especially not this early. He has 37 on my big board. They took him at 19. I get trying to get your tackle of the future here because Taylor Moton's most likely on the way out at some point soon. Ike Kwanu obviously also injured. Monroe Freeling has a ton of potential, a ton of potential. I just thought just way too inconsistent for me to want to take this guy in the top 20 right now. But Carolina clearly not scared. I just think it's just a bit of a reach, and I think there were I would have preferred for them to trade down and take him. Of course, they might not have been able to get him if they traded down, but I still think this is just too high for me for Monroe Freeling, so I give this pick a C plus. But day two was really nice. You get Lee Hunter and Chris Brazzell, two impactful players. I think Chris Brazzell goes right where I think he should have. Same with Lee Hunter. 43 on my big board. They get him at 49. Brazzell, they pick him at 83, 85 on my big board. Really nice. Lee Hunter can be a really good nose tackle right next to Derek Brown. And then Chris Brazzell, a nice wide receiver 3 or 4 for this team. Uh, Maybe pushing out Leggett. We'll see. Will Lee, good value in the fourth round. It's fine. And then Sam Hecht, possibly could be your starting center this year. I was a little lower on Hecht, but they get him in the fifth round, which is good, really good value for him. And then Zakee Wheatley as well, good value. So I think day three they got good value picks on all their players. I think day one, I'm not the biggest fan of the Freeling pick, but they get Lee Hunter and Brazel as well, which is really nice, really good haul from the Carolina Panthers. I give this draft a B plus from Carolina. And now Philly. I'm gonna be lower on this class, but they started off with an amazing pick. My number 10 player in the entire draft, they trade up to get him at 20. They steal him, ironically, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Really love Mekhi Lemon. He's a really good player. It's interesting to see how he'll fit with Jalen Hurts, a quarterback who doesn't really like to throw over the middle, where Mekhi Lemon likes to work. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if Jalen Hurts can develop in the middle of the field, passing at any point in his career. But yeah, A plus pick for Mekhi Lemon. Outrageous value for a top 10 player in this draft and a future really good wide receiver, I think. Stowers, I think they just took him around early. He's 91 on my big board. They took him at 54. Just early for me for Eli Stowers. So I give that pick a C minus. And then Markel Bell, I give a C. Again, around early for him on Bell. Fine swing tackle with potential. I just think he didn't play as big as his size was. And then Cole Payton in the fifth round, new starting quarterback for you. Just kidding. But fine value on Cole Payton, a fun backup with some nice traits. Micah Morris, fine value in the sixth round. Cole Wisniewski, good value in the seventh. And then or Bernard, they take who's never even played football before. So we'll see how that pick goes. Um, Overall, day three, you get fine value. I just think you just reached on two players on day two. So I give this class a C plus because I don't think outside of Mekhi Lemon you're getting any real big contributors to this team, unfortunately. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers, they go Max Iheanacho in the first round. I'm just simply lower on Max Iheanacho. I think he's a real project tackle with a lot of core strength issues. I think if this guy goes against a power rusher in the NFL, I think there's a good chance he gets worked. But he does move really well. He's got a lot of potential. I just would have preferred him in the second round over pick 21. So it's just a real heavy reach based on my big board. I had him 60th on the big board to take him at 21. And then Jeremy Bernard. Love this pick. A plus pick, 27 on my big board. They get him at 47. Awesome receiver, great value, and he's a really good complement to the receivers they have on the roster as well. Draymond Bernard, love the player. He's going to be a great player in the league. Drew Aller at 76. I think it's just a slight reach. I think they just took him around early. But, I mean, betting on the traits is fine. Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be a good quarterback for you, but there's a 1% chance that he might. Jalen Everett, fine value for him here. Jennings Dunker, I think they got a round later than I would have taken him. 57 on my big board, they get him at 96. Really fun player. Going to be a good player to contend for that starting guard spot. I give this pick an A. Nowakowski, I think it was early in the fifth round for him. He's just too small, man. He's just too small. He's a really fun player. Love that he went to Indiana. Scrappy guy, but sorry, he's just too small. I would have not taken him in the fifth round. I would have waited till the seventh round to take him. And then they get good value in the seventh round. Robert Spears, Jennings, and Eli Heidenreich, guys who have a lot of potential and could just be really good special teamers for you in the seventh round. So really good value there. Overall, I'm going to give this Steelers draft a B. Uh, really good players, I think, across the board. I'm a little lower on Ianichor, and we'll have to see how that turns out. If he turns into a franchise tackle, then this draft could be even better. And now the LA Chargers. This is going to be one of the more controversial opinions of mine, but I'm not a fan of the Hakeem Mesidor in the first round at all. Um, I I did not see a first round caliber pass rusher. I saw a late second, early third rotational pass rusher who lacks a power profile and doesn't really play the run particularly well. 64th on my big board was Akeem Mesidor. They take him at 22. I just can't get behind it. I liked a lot better players, um, and D minus grade on this pick. Just a massive reach based on my opinion and evaluation of Mesidor and his position on my big board. And then another reach, Jake Slaughter in the second round. I would have preferred him in the third. They take him about 20 spots too early for me. C plus pick on that. I think there were better interior linemen anyways. And then they get Brendan Thompson in the third round, a really fun player. I think Mike McDaniel is going to be able to do a lot with him. Super speedy guy, very Mike McDaniel esque player, of course, that he would like. Brendan Thompson, super fast player, going to be fun in this receiving core. And then they get Travis Burke, a really nice developmental tackle in the fourth. With how much their tackles get hurt, honestly, I really love this pick because Burke can come in and be a really solid tackle for you. Got all the potential in the world. Just got to kind of hone in the skills a little bit. And he's going to be learning behind Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. So, and then probably my guy in the draft goes in the fourth round. Genesis Smith. I loved this player. I initially loved him even more, but I did end up lowering his grade a little bit. His coverage instincts are off the charts. I love Genesis Smith. I think he's going to be able to contend for a starting role in this Chargers defense. I had him as a second round player, 44 on my big board. They get him at 131. Really good player. Sucks at tackling is the big knock on him, of course. Genesis Smith, real bad tackler, but his coverage ability is awesome. I really love his coverage ability. I think he's the best coverage ability of any safety in this class. His range and instincts and coverage are just amazing. Love that Genesis Smith pick, and then the rest I have no opinion on. So overall, I think you have good players. You have a good wide receiver four in Brendan Thompson, a possible starting guard in Jake Slaughter. We'll see. And then Genesis Smith, a possible really good starting safety for you. And I can't get over taking a rotational pass rusher, in my opinion, in the first round. So I'm going to go C on the Chargers draft. And then the Chicago Bears go Dylan Thieneman high. I would have preferred a McNeil Warren here, but this is fine value for Thieneman. They take him at 25. I had him 30 with a round two grade. B plus pick here. You get a good player at a position of need. No real reason to complain about this pick. Logan Jones, they just picked him a little early in the second round for me. I had him as a round three guy, number 79 on my big board, to take him at 57. I loved the tape with Logan Jones. Love the tape. Love the tape. He's just too small. And this is most likely going to be the Bears' starting center for this next season. And I love Logan Jones. And if the length and his size does not bother him in the NFL like it did in college, He's going to be an awesome, awesome player. The issue is I just don't know how that size is going to translate to the NFL, and I think there's a real big chance that size really hinders him from being a good center in the NFL. Sam Roush, they take him in the third round after trading out of the second round pick. I like Sam Roush. I think this is a really good value on Sam Roush. The reason this is not a better pick is just because I don't think they need tight end over other positions of need that they could have taken. And then they take a returner in the third round again. This feels like Velus Jones all over again. Xavier Thomas, a player who's probably the best of the LSU wide receivers, but again, he's just we're taking a return specialist with the amount of needs on this team in the third round is kind of just a horrendous misuse of assets, in my opinion. In the fourth round, you get Malik Muhammad, just a slight reach for me with, I think, better corners available. So a C plus on the Malik Muhammad pick, but it's not bad. Keyshawn Elliott, you get good value on him, B pick. And then Jordan Vandenberg, insanely good value on him. He is a high upside player, and you take him in the sixth round. I love that pick, A plus on the Jordan Vandenberg pick. Overall, this class should have been a lot better, in my opinion, but got some decent, you got good players. So this class isn't awful. I think it should have been a lot better. So C plus for the Bears draft, in my opinion. Houston Texans started off by trading up to reach on Keelan Rutledge. Not the biggest fan. I'm all for prioritizing the trench play, and they have to get CJ Stroud and O line. Um, they actually did a really good job of upgrading the O line in the offseason. But Keelan Rutledge it's just a reach here. He's 42 on my board. I would have much preferred Rutledge in the second round. He's a really fun player though, so I don't think he's gonna be a bad player. So I can't be too harsh on the pick. So C plus grade on Keelan Rutledge. I just don't like the position that they took him in the process that they took to get. And then Caden McDonald in the second round though, awesome pick, A pick, really good value. He's 24th on my big board. They take him at 36. Awesome pick for the Houston Texans there. Not so awesome pick is Marlon Klein. I had this guy as a late sixth, early seventh round tight end prospect. You take him in the second round. Outrageous. I mean, outrageous in my opinion. Complete, easy F. Complete F pick. What are we doing here? Marlon Klein was not even close to being one of the better blocking tight ends in this class. He was a blocking tight end, but there were so many other guys who were better. I mean, even Nate Borgaker was a much better blocking tight end than Marlon Klein. Marlon Klein, fine blocker, cannot do anything in the receiving game. Anything. So many other tight ends that should have gone ahead of Marlon Klein, and he should have not even been picked anywhere close to this in the second round. Outrageous. And then they take a few players that I didn't scout, don't know really anything about. And then they get some good day three steals with Kamari Ramsey and Aiden Fisher, guys who I think can contribute and be rotational players for this team. But overall, that the Rutledge and Klein pick kind of hold this draft class down, and I'm giving it a C plus. It could have been a lot better in my opinion, but I think you got a good defensive starter and a possible good starting guard for the future. The other picks, not so much. So C plus for the Texans. Now the New England Patriots, they trade up to take Caleb Lomu in the first round. I do like this. Interesting to see if Lomu plays right tackle, considering it seems like the reports were that Lomu was a left tackle only. So we'll see if they move Will Campbell to the right or inside, but I'm assuming they're just going to play Lomu at right tackle and take over more from Morgan Moses. But good value, 26 on my big board. They take him at 28, A minus pick for Caleb Lomu. And then they trade up to take Gabe Akis in the end of the second round. I just think it's a slight reach, but overall, I think he was the best pass rusher available, so I couldn't be too harsh. So a B pick. I think Gabe Akis is a solid rotational, um, heavy-handed edge player. I just didn't see the big pass rush upside with him. And then I think we do have a pretty significant reach here on Eli Raritan. 164 on my big board, 95th pick for the New England Patriots. Fun player. I would have gone with different options here. Raritan, Notre Dame fan, hurts me to be lower on a Notre Dame player, but I just did not like his route running at all. In his hands, he had some really bad drops as well. But so reach there in the third round, I think, for Raritan, who I would have much preferred on day three. Um, and then in the sixth round, they get a solid uh, developmental tackle in Demetrius Crownover. 173 on my big board. They get him at 196. Not a good player right now, but he's got all the tools to be good. So we'll see if he can ever develop into being a good player. And then seventh round, they kind of didn't really do much with the picks. So I think you get some good players. I don't think you need any great players though. B minus for the New England Patriots. It's a fine draft. And the Seattle Seahawks. I it just starts off with a pick that I just don't really like. I give this pick a D. Jadarian Price had as a third round graded running back, and I get this class sucks. But I had Mike Washington and Jonah Coleman as both better running back prospects than Jadarian Price, and you take him in the first round. I would have much preferred you trade out of this pick and even take Jadarian Price in the second round. I like him a lot more, but I still like Coleman and Washington as running back prospects over Price. So, not a big fan of this pick. I give it a D. And then Bud Clark, really fun player. I can see him turning into a super awesome player under Mike McDonald. He's just super inconsistent right now. But if he locks everything in, I think he's a good player. I just think they reached a little much on him at the back end of the second. I would have much preferred him at the back end of the third. So 64th pick in the draft, 107 on my big board. And then Julian Neal, again, another reach for me. I would have much preferred him on day three, 163 on my big board. They take him at 99. C minus there for me on Julian Neal. Bo Stevens, fine value in the fifth round, 167 on my big board. They take him at 148. B there. And then they just took a bunch of players that I had no idea who they are. So the Seahawks, I think this draft could have gone a lot better for the defending champions. C minus for me. Just reaches all over the board on all these players. And now moving on to the San Francisco 49ers. They traded out of the first round to the 33rd pick in the draft and took a massive reach, in my opinion, on Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss. This is another guy who I will say this: Stribling is one of my favorite players to watch, like aesthetically in this draft. I don't know what it is about him, the way he plays, the way he moves. It's just really aesthetically pleasing. Unfortunately, I had him as a late three, early four. 102 on my big board. You take him all the way at 33 with basically a first round pick. As for a guy, I think is going to be maybe a wide receiver three. I really just can't get behind it. Stribling is a nice change of pace receiver, real nice athlete, but his separation ability is just so underwhelming. He'll be a solid receiver. His separation ability really caps his ceiling, and I really don't think he's gonna be much other than a wide receiver three. And with the other receivers on the board, taking Stribling here, in my opinion, is just such a bad pick. I give this pick an F. I give it an F. Unreal reach in terms of round and big board position, and there were better players available. Really hated this pick for the Niners. And then they take Romello Height in the third round, 94th on my big board. They take him at 70. It's fine. It's fine. Just a reach pretty much is the only reason why that wasn't a better pick. Solid DPR. I think he just reached on him by about 20 spots, but it's fine. And then Kalen Black in the third round, the highly unathletic, uninspiring, not very creative runner who, yes, is the better runner out of the two Indiana running backs, but Kalen Black was 206th on my big board, a round seven player, and they took him with the 90th pick in the draft on day two. Another F pick. This is just what a complete disastrous start to the two first 2 days for the Niners. Just the Stribling pick and the Kalen Black pick are just, what are we doing here? And then day three, they get a little back on track. Grayson Halton in the fourth round is a good value. They get him at 107, using 116th on my big board. And then they take Carver Willis, kind of a developmental, high upside, really low floor backup lineman. fine, B minus there. I think they reached on him a little bit, but not terrible value in the fourth round. And then Ephesians Prysock, they get good value on in the fourth round. And then the other two, I don't have an opinion on. But the fact that, yeah, sure, you get decent value on some of these guys on day three, these are not really impactful players. Halton is a rotational lineman, Prysock is a backup corner, and Carver Willis is a backup lineman. Sure, you get good value on those guys, so the picks look decent in the grade, but for the picks that actually matter, like the day two picks, they completely drop the ball, in my opinion. Two F graded picks with some of the most important picks in the draft is just a disaster for the Niners, and that's why this draft is an F. This is an F draft for the San Francisco 49ers. Outrageous reaches, real lack of getting players that are significantly going to impact this team. And with the NFC West getting better and better every year, I mean, the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. The Rams are still the Rams. The Cardinals exist. Uh, the fact that you're coming away with this draft with an F is not good at all for the San Francisco 49ers. And now the Buffalo Bills, yet another class I'm just not the biggest fan of. I think their first two picks, they're another team that traded out of the first round. Their first two picks are both reaches. I think TJ Parker is not a second round edge, and surely not a top of the second round edge player. As 68 on my big board, they take him at 35. D plus pick. A, there's better defenders available, and B, way too big of a reach for a player I just think is just going to be okay as a edge setting defensive lineman who doesn't really have much of a pass rush ability. And then Igbinosun is a backup corner, in my opinion. This without his physicality, his coverage skills are really not that good. And I mean, this is a player that, because of that physicality that he needs to keep up with these players, he's drawn so many penalties. And you trade up to take him in the second round? Not a fan at all. So a D plus pick on TJ Parker, a D pick on Davison Igbinosun. And then day three, they had a much better day. Brandon Beane kind of turned it around. Jude Bowery, a good developmental backup tackle. Skylar Bell, really good value on Skylar Bell as a receiver. Kind of redundant with Khalil Shakir, but the value is too good here. I give this pick an A. Caleb Elarms or fine value at pick 126. Jalen Kilgore, really good value in the fifth round. I thought he could have gone back end of day two. 105 on my big board. They get him at 167. Zane Durant, fine value in the fifth round, I suppose. And then Armaj Reed Adams. I was really high on Armaj Reed Adams. They get him in the seventh round. I thought he was a third round caliber player who can rotate in and be a good backup lineman for you. But again, just like the Niners, day three is fine, but these are players that are rotational special teams guys and guys that are very boom or bust and guys that aren't going to significantly impact your team unless you just get a crazy hit or development on one of them. The picks that really mattered, I think the Buffalo Bills just completely blew up. TJ Parker and Igbinosun were not worth those slots in my opinion, and that's why I'm going to give this Bills draft a D+. Cincinnati Bengals now. They trade their first round pick for Dexter Lawrence, so if you want to grade that move as well in their draft, go ahead. I think it's a little rich to pay for Dexter Lawrence, but we'll see if Lawrence comes back to his dominant form that he didn't really have last year. But at pick 41, Cassius Howell. This is tremendous value for Cassius Howell, I think, for a team that really needs pass rush. Howell pretty much offers only pass rush, but he offers a lot of it. Round two graded player, 25 on my big board. They get him at 41. Really, really good value for the Bengals here. And then they reach on Tack Davis. I mean, he's just kind of a backup, high upside, really low floor corner that I would have preferred in on day three. Fifth round grade, 166 on the big board. They take him at 72. There were way better corners available as well. Even his teammate, Ephesians Prysock, I thought was better. So a D minus there for the Bengals. Connor Lew, really good value here in the fourth round. I think this is a guy who can start for you. Eventually, if you need third round grade for me, McConnell, 75th on the big board. They get him at 128. Really good pick here. Colby Young, no opinion. Brian Parker, I would have much preferred as the UDFA, but it's a sixth round, so not the end of the world. C grade for Brian Parker. Um, Really good value on Jack Endries. I think Jack Endries can contribute to this tight end room a lot, to be honest. Third round grade on Endries. 90th on the big board. They get him at 221. So an insane value for I think the player that you're getting. And then Landon Robinson is good value in the seventh as a potential high upside, really low floor splash player on that interior defensive line. So overall, they got some really good players. They did reach on a few, but the lack of first round pick obviously kind of caps the ceiling on this class. But I think it is a really good class nonetheless, even if they did reach on Tack Davis. So a B for the Bengals. You get some good players, and for the capital that you had left over, I think you did a decent job. But you certainly could have done a little better. And now the Atlanta Falcons, speaking of not really having a whole lot of draft capital, they go Avion Terrell though with their first pick, pair him up with AJ Terrell. So you have the brothers now on the same Atlanta Falcons team. 32nd on the big board. I give this pick an A. This is a really good value for Avion Terrell. I think he's a good player. And now he gets to play with his brother, which is super fun. And then third round they go Zach Branch. I would have much preferred this kind of gadgety player in the fourth round. So you take him a little early. He's 136 on the big board. You take him at 79. It's whatever. But again, I would have much preferred him a little later. So C plus on that. Kendall Daniels, fine value in the fourth round as a kind of a backup linebacker, special teamer. Same with Harold Perkins in the sixth round. Fine value, 208 on the big board, 215 is the pick for Harold Perkins. So fine value there. So overall, not really many impactful picks, but I don't think you like completely blew them up. I think you got a really good player in Avion Terrell, and Zach Branch can be a contributor in many different ways for you, even if he's not going to be the significant impact in the receiving game that I think he's going to be. So, limited capital kind of caps the ceiling of this draft, similar to the Bengals. So I'm going to go B minus on the Falcons here. And now the Green Bay Packers. The first two picks I love. Cisse is good value here at pick 52. He's 47 on my big board. I think the best corner available when they took him, well, other than Javon McCoy, of course. So A minus for the Cisse pick, really nice there. Chris McClellan, really good value here in the third round. They picked him at 77. He was 62nd on my big board. So A grade for me from that Chris McClellan pick. Really like McClellan. I think he can be a good starter for you. Um, and yeah, high floor guy. And then deny Dennis Sutton. I know a lot of people like Dennis Sutton late day two, early day three. I was super low on Dennis Sutton. I had him as a sixth round grade, 187th on my big board. They took him at 120. So this is even though people think this is a good value for Dennis Sutton, for me this is still a significant reach. I just did not see much traits, or not traits, but I did not see much ability from Dennis Sutton to really perform well in the NFL on his college tape. So we'll see. And then Jaeger Burton, fine value in the fifth round. And then they draft a kicker and Damani Jackson, who I have no opinion on. Maybe Trace Mack ends up being pretty good. We'll see. But I think the top of this class really is pretty nice, even with the reach on Dennis Sutton. They kind of make up for it. So B grade on this class for the Packers. Not a whole lot of capital to work with, but they did decent with what they had. And now the Indianapolis Colts, my Indianapolis Colts, trying to try and keep my bias out of it here. But I mean, how I know it looks biased because all of the A's, but I mean, look at the value they're getting on these guys. CJ Allen falls all the way down to 31 because of injury concern, or all the way down to 53 because of injury concerns. He's 31 on my big board. Colts get him at 53 at a massive position of need in linebacker. Lou Anarumo gets his green dot as well. And then the third round, they get AJ Halsey, a really nice instinctual safety who can come up and hit as well. 49th on the big board. They get him at 78th in the third round. Really good value. A picks on both those guys. And then going to day three, they get Jalen Farmer, another player who I was higher on. 72nd on the big board, 113th on where he got picked. Jalen Farmer, really powerful guard. Um, and I mean, yeah, it's tremendous value for a player that I think can be a starter. And if Matt Goncalves has to slide out to tackle because Jalen Travis is struggling, Jalen Farmer can plug into that spot and be a really, really good player. And then fourth round, we go Bryce Betcher. This is perfect value for Betcher. They drafted him at 135, 129 on the big board. Really good value here, right where I feel like he should have gone even later. And he's a really good backup and can be a really good special teamer and a possible starter. George Gums, no opinion. Caden Curry, didn't really scout him. Of course, watched him adjacently on that Ohio State defense. Shortest arms in the history of the combine for a defensive end, but he's a good player. At least solid. He'll be a nice rotational early down kind of heavy-handed guy. Seth McGowan, really love in the seventh round. I really like Seth McGowan. He'll be a good RB2 for this Colts team. And then Deion Burks, incredible value as well in the seventh round. 108 and 154 on the big board for those guys, and then the Colts get him at 237 and 254. Now, the lack of first round picks, the last lack of a first round pick really could have sent this class over the moon. And of course, we have been fooled by Chris Ballard classes before, but I mean, how with the players that I have graded, how they are, I mean, this is a good class on paper. We have to see how they develop, but overall, I think Ballard killed it. I'm going to give the Colts an A minus. And hopefully this is not another fool's gold draft by Chris Ballard. And now the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were subject to the most controversial class, certainly in this entire draft, and for good reason. Nate Borkaker with the 56th overall pick. As a player, as I had a late 3, early 4, 111th on the big board, they take him at 56 over so many better players. Literally, Sam Roush is Nate Borkacher, but literally just better. No idea why they didn't take Sam Roush if they wanted this kind of player. I mean, just complete F for the Nate Borkacher pick. Albert Regis, another reach, D plus on that. They take him in the third round. I had him as a late 4, early 5, 150 on the big board. They take him at 81. It's not an egregious reach, but I certainly think there were better players, and just a really big reach based on the big board. But then they get Emmanuel Pregnon, a player who was my 18th ranked player in the draft. They get him at 88, obvious A plus pick, um, amazing. I don't know why Pregnon fell this far. He's a really good player, and he's going to be really good for the interior of the Jags line. And I'm going to be honest, Pregnon saves this draft class pretty much, just completely saves it. Um, Wesley Williams, no opinion. Or Jalen, I skipped over Jalen Husky, sorry. Jalen Husky was one of the last players I watched in this class. Really good player, fundamentally, really sound, really instinctual in coverage. He's just not an athlete. If Jalen Husky was even an average to above average athlete, I mean, this is a second round safety. The unfortunate thing is he's just not a good enough athlete. But he's a really good player, and he'll be a really solid backup. I just think his athleticism caps him kind of as a good backup instead of a good starter. Good value there in the third round. And then Tanner Koziel, good value in the fifth round. I think he's a really good receiving tight end. 126 on the big board, they get him at 164. And then James Gladstone just decided to take a million players that nobody has no idea who they are. So we'll see how this class ages, but with the players that I know, it's a real up and down. Day 3, they got some good backup players. And then Manuel Pregnon, I mean, pretty much saves the entire class because the first 2 picks were just awful. But still, D plus for the Jags because what are we doing with those first 2 picks? And then yeah, Pregnon, they got completely lucky. Pregnon fell into their lap at the 88th pick in the draft. And now the final team we're going to be doing here is the Denver Broncos. Speaking of not a lot of draft capital, their first pick was in the third round. They traded out of the back end of the second and take Tyler Onidim, a player who could be fun. He's got a lot of potential. I would have preferred him in the fourth round. 130 and the big board, they take him at 66, so a pretty significant reach, but he has some potential. I think he could be a good player. So C plus there. And then you get really good value on Jonah Coleman, 58th ranked player in the class. They get him at 108. Really like Jonah Coleman. I think he's going to be a good contributor to this run game eventually. But fourth round pick, A grade there. And then Cage Casey, I'm a big fan he's one of my biggest my guys in this class. I think he's an interior lineman. Um, They draft him in the fourth round, 111. He's 61st on my big board. A plus pick here. I think Cage Casey's gonna be can be an eventual starting guard in the NFL. And then Justin Jolie, third round graded tight end. They get in the fifth round. Third on the mid board. On the big board, they get him at 152. Awesome value here for Jolie. Really nice, fun receiving tight end. A grade there. And then Dallin Bentley, they get really good value on with the second to last pick in the draft. And then Red Murdoch, they take with the last pick in the draft. Fine linebacker. Didn't really watch him, but heard a lot about him, and I think this is good, really good value with him for it to be Mr. Irrelevant. So B minus for me for the Broncos. They got some good players, but with the lack of capital, it's kind of hard to have a really great class. And yeah, that is my draft grades for every single team in the NFL. A lot of talking. Sorry about it, but yeah, uh, those are the grades for every uh, class. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.